Hello everyone, and welcome back. Before we begin, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to show you isn't just another missing person case. This is a disappearance so perfectly executed, so methodically planned, that it seems almost impossible. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button now. This channel is dedicated to deep investigations into cases that deserve answers. Cases where the truth is hiding in plain sight. And this case? The truth walked right past a security camera. We have him on video. We know exactly when he took her car. We can see him walking away. But we can't see his face. Not because the camera malfunctioned. Not because the footage was damaged. But because every single time the camera captured him, at the exact moment it took a photo, a concrete pillar blocked his face. Every single time. January 24, 2006. Orlando, Florida. Jennifer Joyce Kesse wakes up in her condominium at the Mosaic at Millennia Complex. She's 24 years old, beautiful, successful. She works as a finance manager at Central Florida Investments. She's dating a wonderful man. Her family adores her. Her future is bright. She follows her morning routine. Shower. Coffee. Professional outfit. She's meticulous about being on time. Her co-workers will tell you that Jennifer is never late. Never misses work without calling. Never leaves anyone wondering where she is. At approximately 7:30 a.m., Jennifer locks her condo and walks to her black Chevy Malibu in the parking lot. Her briefcase is in her hand. Her cell phone is fully charged. She has a full day of work ahead of her. She gets in her car and drives toward work. That is the last time anyone who loves Jennifer Kesse sees her alive. By 9 a.m., when Jennifer doesn't show up for a morning meeting, her co-workers start calling. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. By 10 a.m., they're worried. By noon, they call her family. By that evening, Jennifer's parents are driving from their home 2 hours away, terror growing with every mile. Their daughter doesn't just disappear. Jennifer doesn't ignore calls. Something is terribly, horribly wrong. The next day, January 25, Jennifer's black Chevy Malibu is found. Not far from her condo. Just over a mile away, parked at another condominium complex called Huntington on the Green. The car has been wiped clean. Not just wiped. Scrubbed with chemicals. There's no DNA. No fingerprints. No evidence of who drove it there. But there's security camera footage from the Huntington complex. And what that footage shows will haunt investigators for the next 19 years. At approximately noon on January 24, 12 hours after Jennifer disappeared, a person drives her Malibu into the Huntington parking lot. The person parks the car carefully, precisely. Not rushing. Not panicking. The person exits the vehicle, locks it, and walks away at a leisurely pace. The security camera takes photos every 3 seconds. It captures this person walking. 1 photo. 2 photos. 3 photos. 4 photos. In every single photograph, at the exact instant the camera snaps the image, a concrete pillar in the parking structure perfectly blocks the person's face. Investigators enhanced the images. They brought in FBI specialists. They used every technology available. But the conclusion was unavoidable and deeply disturbing. Either this person had the most statistically impossible luck in history, or they knew exactly where the cameras were and timed their walk to ensure their face would never be visible. This wasn't luck. This was planning. Someone took Jennifer Kesse. Someone who knew security systems. Someone who understood how to avoid detection. Someone who walked away from her car in broad daylight, confident they'd never be identified. And they were right. 19 years later, Jennifer Kesse has never been found. The person in that security footage has never been identified. And somewhere, someone who knows exactly what happened that January morning is still walking free. This is the complete story of Jennifer Kesse. Every detail of her life. Every minute of that terrible day. Every theory. Every suspect. Every agonizing year her family has spent searching for answers. By the end of this investigation, you'll understand why this case is different. Why it's solvable. And why someone, somewhere, is terrified that the truth will finally come out. Her name was Jennifer Joyce Kesse. She was 24 years old. And she deserves justice. We begin. Before we can understand what happened to Jennifer Kesse, you need to know who she was. Not just facts and dates, but the person. Because Jennifer wasn't a statistic. She wasn't just another missing person. She was real, vibrant, loved, and on the verge of building an extraordinary life. Jennifer Joyce Kesse was born on May 20, 1981, in New Jersey. She was the first child of Drew and Joyce Kesse, and from the moment she arrived, she was special. Her parents will tell you that Jennifer had a presence even as a baby. She was alert, curious, always watching everything around her with those bright, intelligent eyes. When Jennifer was 3 years old, the Kesse family moved to Tampa, Florida. Drew had accepted a new job opportunity, and Florida would become home. 2 years later, Jennifer's brother Logan was born, and the family was complete. Jennifer took her role as big sister seriously, even at 5 years old. She was protective, nurturing, the kind of child who made sure her little brother was always included, always safe. Growing up in Tampa, Jennifer was the kid every parent hopes their child will become. She was responsible without being told. She was kind without expecting recognition. She excelled in school not because she was pushed, but because she genuinely loved learning. Her parents remember a specific moment when Jennifer was 8 years old. They'd taken the family to the beach, and Jennifer had found a little girl crying because she'd lost her mother. While other children played in the sand, Jennifer stayed with that frightened little girl, holding her hand, keeping her calm until they found her parents. That was Jennifer. Always helping. Always caring. In middle school, Jennifer discovered she had a gift for mathematics and finance. Numbers made sense to her in a way they didn't for most people. She could look at a spreadsheet and immediately spot patterns, anomalies, solutions. Her teachers noticed. They encouraged her to pursue business and finance as a career. But Jennifer wasn't just about academics. She was social, popular, the kind of teenager who had friends across different groups. She wasn't cliquish. She didn't exclude anyone. If you were sitting alone at lunch, Jennifer would invite you to her table. If you needed help with homework, Jennifer would tutor you for free. She had this gift for making people feel valued. At Vivian Gaither High School, Jennifer was a standout student. She maintained a high GPA while also working part-time jobs to save money for college. Even as a teenager, she was planning her future, thinking steps ahead. She knew she wanted to attend the University of Central Florida. She knew she wanted to major in finance. She knew she wanted to build a career helping businesses succeed. And she did exactly that. Jennifer graduated from the University of Central Florida with a degree in finance. Her professors remember her as one of their most dedicated students. She didn't just memorize formulas and pass tests. She understood the why behind the numbers. She asked questions that showed she was thinking beyond the classroom, already planning how to apply this knowledge in the real world. After graduation, Jennifer was recruited by Central Florida Investments, a timeshare company based in Ocoee, just outside Orlando. She was hired as a finance manager, a significant position for someone just out of college. But Jennifer wasn't just any recent graduate. She was sharp, professional, reliable. Within months, she'd proven herself indispensable to the company. Her co-workers adored her. She was the person everyone wanted on their team. She met deadlines. She caught mistakes others missed. She stayed late when projects demanded it. But she also remembered birthdays, organized office celebrations, checked in on colleagues who seemed stressed. She had this rare combination of professional excellence and genuine human warmth. By 2006, at just 24 years old, Jennifer had established herself as someone with a bright future. She was earning a good salary, saving money, planning for the next steps in her career. She'd recently purchased her own condominium at the Mosaic at Millenia, upscale complex in a desirable part of Orlando. It was her first major adult investment, and she was proud of it. The condo was on the ground floor of a 2-story building, unit number 2 in building 3. It was a 1-bedroom unit, beautifully maintained. Jennifer had decorated it herself, carefully choosing furniture in colors that reflected her personality. Clean, organized, comfortable. Friends who visited were always impressed by how put together her place was, especially for someone so young. But Jennifer's life wasn't all work. She had a full, rich personal life as well. She'd been dating Rob Allen for over a year. Rob lived in Fort Lauderdale, about 3 hours south of Orlando, so theirs was a long-distance relationship. But they made it work. Jennifer would drive to Fort Lauderdale on weekends, or Rob would come to Orlando. They talked on the phone every day, sometimes multiple times. They were planning a future together. Rob will tell you that Jennifer was the love of his life. She was intelligent, driven, but also fun and spontaneous. They'd take trips together, explore new restaurants, spend lazy Sundays just being together. Rob says he was planning to propose. He'd been looking at rings. He was just waiting for the right moment. Jennifer's parents loved Rob. They could see how happy he made their daughter. They'd welcomed him into the family, invited him to holidays and celebrations. Drew and Joyce believed Rob was the man Jennifer would marry. Jennifer was also deeply connected to her family. She talked to her parents almost daily. She'd call her mom to talk about work, about Rob, about nothing and everything. She'd call her dad for advice about her condo, about finances, about life decisions. She adored her younger brother Logan, who by 2006 was in college himself. The Kesse family was close, the kind of family that actually enjoys spending time together. Holidays were important. Family dinners were sacred. They supported each other through everything. Jennifer's success was celebrated by all of them. Her happiness was their happiness. By early January 2006, Jennifer's life was exactly where she wanted it to be. She had a career she loved. A man she adored. A family that supported her unconditionally. Financial independence. A beautiful home. She was healthy, happy, optimistic about the future. She had everything to live for. One detail about Jennifer that everyone mentions: she was organized to the point of being meticulous. Her condo was always clean. Her bills were always paid on time. Her schedule was planned down to the hour. She was never late for work. She never forgot appointments. She always called if plans changed. This detail is crucial to understanding what happened next. Because when Jennifer Kesse disappeared, when she simply failed to show up for work without a word, everyone who knew her understood immediately that something catastrophic had occurred. Jennifer didn't just vanish. She wouldn't. It wasn't in her nature to cause worry, to be irresponsible, to leave people wondering. If Jennifer said she'd be somewhere, she'd be there. If she couldn't make it, she'd call ahead. The fact that she didn't show up for work that Tuesday morning, the fact that her phone went straight to voicemail, the fact that no one heard from her at all, told everyone who loved her one terrible thing: Jennifer hadn't left by choice. Something had happened to her. Someone had taken her. But to understand how and why, we need to look at the days leading up to her disappearance. Because there were warning signs. Small things that, in retrospect, seemed terrifyingly significant. Details that Jennifer herself might not have thought much about at the time, but that painted a picture of danger closing in. The Mosaic at Millennia was an upscale condominium complex on Conroy Road in Orlando. It was relatively new in 2006, modern, well-maintained, with amenities like a pool, fitness center, and gated parking. It was the kind of place young professionals aspired to live. Jennifer had moved into her unit in late 2005, just a few months before her disappearance. She'd been excited about the move, eager to have her own space, to build equity instead of paying rent. But there was something happening at the Mosaic that Jennifer found unsettling. The complex was undergoing renovations. Several units were being updated, and there was a construction crew working on the property almost daily. These weren't employees of the complex. They were contract workers, coming and going, many of them temporary laborers who'd be there for a few weeks and then move on to the next job. Jennifer had mentioned to her family and to Rob that some of these workers made her uncomfortable. They'd watch her when she walked to her car. They'd make comments, catcalls, inappropriate remarks. Nothing overtly threatening, but enough to make her uneasy. She'd told her father about one particular incident. She'd been walking to her car in the evening, and several workers had been standing near the parking area, clearly watching her. When she got in her car, she noticed them still staring. It made her skin crawl. Drew Kesse had advised his daughter to be careful, to maybe vary her routine, to always be aware of her surroundings. Jennifer had assured him she would. She'd said she'd be fine. The workers were annoying, but she didn't think they were actually dangerous. In retrospect, Drew Kesse will tell you that this is his greatest regret. He wishes he'd told Jennifer to break her lease, to move out immediately, to get away from those men. But how could he have known? How could any of them have known that someone at that complex was watching Jennifer for reasons far more sinister than anyone imagined? The construction workers would become prime suspects in Jennifer's disappearance. We'll explore that theory in depth later in this investigation. But for now, you need to know that in the weeks before Jennifer vanished, there were men at her complex who were paying very close attention to her. Men whose names, backgrounds, and whereabouts on January 24, 2006, would become crucial pieces of the puzzle. The weekend before Jennifer disappeared was, by all accounts, wonderful. She'd driven to Fort Lauderdale on Friday evening, January 20th, to spend the weekend with Rob Allen. They'd had plans. A nice dinner out on Saturday night. A lazy Sunday morning sleeping in, drinking coffee, just being together. Jennifer had been in great spirits. She'd told Rob about work, about some project she was excited about ideas she had for redecorating her condo. Rob remembers that weekend as perfect. They'd laughed a lot. They'd talked about the future, about maybe Jennifer finding a job in Fort Lauderdale so they wouldn't have to do the long-distance thing anymore. They'd discussed taking a vacation together in the spring, maybe going to the Caribbean. On Sunday evening, January 22nd, Jennifer had left Fort Lauderdale around 6 p.m. to drive back to Orlando. It was a 3-hour drive, which meant she'd get home around 9 p.m., perfect timing to get a good night's sleep before work on Monday. She called Rob when she got home safely, just after 9 p.m. They talked for about 30 minutes, said their goodnights, exchanged I love yous. Rob says there was nothing unusual about the call. Jennifer sounded happy, tired from the drive, looking forward to getting back to her normal work routine. That Sunday night phone call was the last time Rob Allen spoke to Jennifer Kesse. On Monday, January 23rd, Jennifer went to work as usual. It was a normal Monday. She attended meetings, worked on financial reports, had lunch with a coworker. Everything was routine. Her coworkers remember nothing unusual about her behavior that day. She wasn't anxious or nervous. She didn't mention being worried about anything. She didn't say she felt like she was being watched or followed. She was just Jennifer, professional and pleasant as always. She left work at her usual time, around 5:30 p.m. Security logs show her key card was used to exit the building at 5:42 p.m. She walked to her car in the parking lot, got in, and drove home. The drive from her office in Ocoee to her condo at the Mosaic took about 20 minutes. Jennifer should have arrived home around 6 p.m. Phone records show Jennifer made several calls that evening. She called her parents around 6:30 p.m. to check in, told them about her day, chatted for about 15 minutes. She sounded normal, happy, nothing concerning. Around 7 p.m., she called a friend to firm up plans to purchase a digital camera from them later that week. That call lasted about 10 minutes. Again, Jennifer sounded completely normal. At approximately 8 p.m., Jennifer called Rob. They talked for nearly an hour, their usual end-of-day conversation. Rob says Jennifer sounded tired but fine. They talked about their weekends, about work, about nothing important. Just the comfortable conversation of two people who talk every day. Around 9 p.m., they said goodnight. Rob says Jennifer mentioned she was going to watch a TV show and then go to bed early. She had an important meeting at work the next morning and wanted to be well rested. That phone call, at 9 p.m. on Monday, January 23, 2006, was the last confirmed conversation anyone had with Jennifer Kesse. What happened in the next 10.5 hours would remain a mystery that haunts investigators to this day. I want to pause here and emphasize something crucial about Jennifer's character, because it's central to understanding why her disappearance is so baffling and so clearly the result of foul play. Jennifer Kesse was not the type of person who disappeared voluntarily. She wasn't running from anything. She didn't have secret debts, hidden drug problems, or reasons to flee her life. She wasn't depressed or suicidal. She wasn't involved in anything illegal or dangerous. She was stable, happy, successful, and deeply connected to her family and friends. She had too much to lose and absolutely no reason to vanish. Moreover, Jennifer was reliable to a fault. If she said she'd be somewhere, she'd be there. If she couldn't make it, she'd call ahead. She never left people worrying or wondering. It wasn't in her nature to be inconsiderate or irresponsible. Her co-workers at Central Florida Investments will tell you that in the year and a half she'd worked there, Jennifer had never once been late without calling. She'd never missed a meeting without notice. She'd never failed to show up without explanation. Her family will tell you the same thing. Jennifer called them regularly, almost daily. If more than 24 hours passed without Jennifer checking in, they'd know something was wrong. So when Jennifer didn't show up for work on Tuesday morning, when she didn't call, when her phone went straight to voicemail, everyone who knew her understood immediately, this wasn't Jennifer being flaky or forgetful. This was Jennifer in trouble. The other crucial aspect of Jennifer's personality was her caution and awareness. After those incidents with the construction workers at her complex, she'd become more vigilant. She'd told friends she made sure to lock her doors immediately when she got home. She didn't open her door to strangers. She was careful in parking lots, always checking her surroundings. Jennifer wasn't naive. She wasn't reckless. She was a smart, cautious young woman who understood that beautiful women living alone need to be careful. So the idea that Jennifer simply invited danger into her life, that she opened her door to a stranger or got into a car with someone suspicious, doesn't fit with who she was. Whatever happened to Jennifer Kesse on the night of January 23 or the morning of January 24, it wasn't because she made a foolish decision or took an unnecessary risk. Someone took her. Someone who either forced their way into her life or who was clever enough to get close to her without raising alarms. And that someone knew exactly what they were doing. January 24, 2006. Tuesday. The day that would change everything for the Kesse family and launch one of the most frustrating missing person investigations in Florida history. Let's reconstruct this day minute by minute, using every piece of evidence available: phone records, security footage, witness statements, and forensic analysis. Because somewhere in this timeline, hidden between confirmed facts and unexplained gaps, is the answer to what happened to Jennifer Kesse. Monday night, January 23, the last known hours. 9 p.m. Jennifer ends her phone call with Rob Allen. According to Rob, she sounds tired but normal. She mentions wanting to watch some TV and go to bed early because she has an important meeting at work the next morning. This is the last confirmed conversation anyone has with Jennifer. 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. This 2-hour window is where things become unclear. Based on typical routines, Jennifer likely watched television, possibly in bed. Prepared her work clothes for the next day, she was meticulous about this. Set her alarm. Got ready for bed. Her cell phone records show no outgoing calls or texts during this time. There's no computer activity that investigators could recover. By all accounts, Jennifer was simply having a quiet evening at home, alone in her condo. One neighbor, who lived in the building adjacent to Jennifer's, would later tell police that they heard what might have been Jennifer's alarm clock going off around 10:30 or 11 p.m. This neighbor couldn't be certain it was Jennifer's alarm, but the sound was consistent with an alarm clock coming from the direction of Jennifer's unit. Why would Jennifer's alarm go off at 10:30 or 11 p.m. when she was planning to go to bed? This detail has never been explained. Was it a mistake? Did she set the wrong time? Or did something happen that caused her to be away from her condo when the alarm went off? 11 p.m. estimated, Jennifer likely went to sleep, based on her stated intentions to Rob and her need to be up early for work. 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. the critical window. Somewhere in these 8.5 hours, something happened to Jennifer Kesse. Tuesday morning, January 24, the disappearance. 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. estimated, based on Jennifer's work schedule and typical morning routine, she would have woken up sometime in this window. Her meeting at work was scheduled for 9 a.m., and the drive from her condo took about 35 to 40 minutes. Jennifer was never late, so she would have planned to leave by 8 a.m. at the absolute latest, more likely around 7:30 a.m. to ensure she arrived with time to spare. Jennifer's morning routine, according to friends and family, typically took about an hour to an hour and a half. She'd shower, do her hair and makeup. She was always professionally presented. Get dressed in work attire. Make coffee. Gather her briefcase, purse, phone, keys. Lock up and head to her car. 7:30 a.m. estimated, this is believed to be approximately when Jennifer left her condo. No one saw her leave. No security cameras captured her walking to her car. But based on when she needed to be at work and her typical patterns, 7:30 a.m. is the most likely departure time. Here's what we know for certain: Jennifer's car was in her assigned parking spot on the evening of January 23. Multiple neighbors confirmed seeing it there. By the afternoon of January 24, the car was gone, found a mile away at another complex. So sometime between the evening of the 23rd and the afternoon of the 24th, Jennifer's car left the Mosaic at Millennia Complex. The critical question: was Jennifer driving it? 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Jennifer should have been driving to work during this window. The route from her condo to Central Florida Investments in Ocoee is straightforward: take Conroy Road to the 408 highway, then exit onto West Colonial Drive. The entire trip, in morning traffic, takes 35 to 45 minutes. But Jennifer never arrived at work. Her cell phone, which had been on and functioning the night before, either died, was turned off, or was destroyed sometime before 8 a.m. Cell phone tower ping showed Jennifer's phone last connected to a tower near her condo complex around 10:40 p.m. on January 23. After that, nothing. No pings. No data. No activity. When someone's cell phone suddenly goes dark, it usually means one of three things. 1. The battery died. 2. The phone was turned off. 3. The phone was destroyed. Jennifer's phone was known to hold a charge well. She charged it the night before. It's unlikely the battery died completely by 7:30 a.m. If Jennifer turned her phone off, why? She never turned her phone off during the day. She needed it for work, for staying in touch with family and clients. The most likely explanation: someone turned Jennifer's phone off or destroyed it to prevent tracking and communication. 8 a.m. Jennifer doesn't arrive at work. This isn't concerning yet. She might have hit traffic. She might have stopped for gas or coffee. Her co-workers aren't worried. 9 a.m. Jennifer's meeting at work begins. She's not there. This is unusual. Jennifer is never late for meetings, and she always calls if she's running behind. Her co-workers try calling her cell phone. It goes straight to voicemail. They try again. Voicemail. They send texts. No response. By 9:15 a.m., they're concerned. This isn't like Jennifer at all. 9:30 a.m. Jennifer's supervisor calls her condo phone. No answer. This is now officially strange. Even if Jennifer were sick, she'd answer her phone or at least call in to work. 10 a.m. co-workers are genuinely worried now. Multiple people have tried reaching Jennifer with no success. Her supervisor contacts building security to see if Jennifer's car is in the parking lot. Maybe she's sick and just not answering her phone? 10:30 a.m. Building management checks Jennifer's assigned parking spot. Her car is not there. This sparks two competing theories among her co-workers. Theory A: Jennifer had some kind of emergency and had to leave early, maybe didn't have time to call work yet. Theory B: something is seriously wrong. 11 a.m. Jennifer's supervisor makes the call that will launch the investigation. They contact Jennifer's parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse, who live in Bradenton, about 2 hours south of Orlando. The phone call is brief but terrifying. Jennifer didn't show up for work. No one can reach her. Her car is gone from her condo. Does the family know where she is? Drew and Joyce have no idea. They spoke to Jennifer just yesterday evening. She was fine. She had work today. She should be there. Immediate panic sets in. 11:30 a.m. Drew Kesse tries calling Jennifer's cell phone. Voicemail. He tries her condo line. No answer. He tries Rob Allen, thinking maybe Jennifer drove to Fort Lauderdale for some reason. Rob hasn't heard from her either and is immediately alarmed because Jennifer always calls him in the morning. 12 p.m., noon. This is the most critical moment in the entire timeline, though no one realizes it yet. At approximately noon on January 24, security cameras at Huntington on the Green condominium complex, about 1.2 miles from Jennifer's home, capture footage of Jennifer's black Chevy Malibu entering the parking lot. Someone parks the car in a spot far from any particular building, not in a designated resident space but in a visitor area. The person exits the vehicle, locks it, and walks away from the complex, heading west toward Americana Boulevard. The security camera system at Huntington on the Green takes still photographs every 3 seconds, not continuous video. This means the footage of the person parking Jennifer's car is a series of snapshots, not smooth video. In total, the cameras capture approximately 3 to 4 clear images of the person walking away from Jennifer's car. And in every single image, a concrete pillar in the parking structure perfectly obscures the person's face. We'll analyze this footage in excruciating detail later in this investigation. But for now, understand this: at noon on January 24, someone who is not Jennifer Kesse parked her car at Huntington on the Green and walked away. This means that by noon, Jennifer was already missing and presumably already a victim of foul play. 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. While the person of interest is walking away from Jennifer's car, her family is descending into full crisis mode. Drew and Joyce Kesse are making phone calls to everyone Jennifer knows. Friends, co-workers, neighbors, anyone who might have information. No one has seen her. No one knows where she is. Rob Allen is beside himself with worry. He's calling Jennifer's phone every few minutes, leaving voicemail after voicemail, begging her to call him back. Logan Kesse, Jennifer's younger brother, is trying to stay calm but failing. He knows his sister. She wouldn't just disappear. Something terrible has happened. 3 p.m. Drew and Joyce Kesse make the decision to drive to Orlando immediately. They need to be there. They need to find their daughter. They also make another critical call. They contact the Orlando Police Department to report Jennifer missing. The response they receive is frustrating and, in retrospect, tragically typical of missing adult cases. The officer they speak to explains that Jennifer is an adult. She's only been out of contact for about 6 hours. Many adults go missing temporarily and turn up fine. They should wait 24 hours before filing an official missing persons report. Drew Kesse is furious. He tries to explain that his daughter is not the type of person who disappears. This is not normal. Something is wrong. They need help now, not in 24 hours. The officer is sympathetic but firm. Policy is policy. 24 hours. Drew hangs up and makes a decision that will define the Kesse family's approach to this case for the next 19 years. If the police won't help immediately, the family will do the investigation themselves. 5 p.m. Drew and Joyce arrive at Jennifer's condo at the Mosaic at Millenia. They use Jennifer's spare key, which Jennifer had given them for emergencies, to enter her unit. What they find inside is both reassuring and terrifying. The condo is tidy, as Jennifer always kept it. Her bed appears to have been slept in but was made up. Her work clothes are laid out on a chair, as if she'd been preparing them for the next day. Her briefcase is by the door. Her purse is on the counter. Wait. Her purse is on the counter. Drew and Joyce look through the purse. Jennifer's wallet is inside. Her credit cards. Her driver's license. Cash. Everything a person would need to function in the world is sitting right there in her condo. Jennifer's cell phone, however, is not in the condo. Neither are her keys. But everything else, all her identification, all her money, is there. The bathroom shows evidence of a morning routine. The shower is slightly damp, indicating it was used that morning. Jennifer's makeup is out on the counter, as if she'd been in the middle of getting ready. The coffee maker has coffee in it, still in the pot, now cold. Jennifer had made coffee that morning but apparently never drank it. All of this suggests Jennifer got up, showered, began getting ready for work, and then, what? Left suddenly? Was interrupted? Was taken from her condo? Drew and Joyce checked the condo's locks. The door was locked when they arrived, which they had to unlock with Jennifer's spare key. The windows are all closed and locked from the inside. There's no sign of forced entry. No broken windows. No damaged locks. Nothing to suggest someone broke into Jennifer's condo. 6 p.m. The Kesses begin knocking on neighbors' doors, asking if anyone saw or heard anything unusual the night before or that morning. Most neighbors haven't seen Jennifer in days. A few remember seeing her car in the parking lot on Monday evening, but no one saw her Tuesday morning. One neighbor mentions the construction workers who've been around the complex. Maybe they saw something? 7 p.m. Drew Kesse calls the Orlando Police Department again. He explains that they've checked Jennifer's condo. She's clearly missing. Her car is gone but her purse, wallet, and ID are in her home. She didn't pack any clothes. This is not a voluntary disappearance. Someone has taken his daughter. This time, the urgency in Drew's voice convinces the officer to send someone out. A patrol officer is dispatched to take a report. 8 p.m. The patrol officer arrives at Jennifer's condo and takes a preliminary report. He examines the condo, agrees there's no sign of forced entry or a struggle. He notes that Jennifer's personal belongings are present. He takes down descriptions of Jennifer and her vehicle. The officer explains that the case will be forwarded to detectives in the morning. In the meantime, the family should keep trying to contact Jennifer and let police know immediately if she turns up. The officer leaves. The Kesses are alone in their daughter's condo, surrounded by her things, with no idea where she is or what's happened to her. 9 p.m. midnight, the Kesses spend these hours calling hospitals, checking with Jennifer's friends again, and trying to think of anywhere Jennifer might be. They call the Orlando Police Department multiple times, asking for updates, begging for the case to be treated as urgent. The night passes with no news, no sightings, no information. Jennifer has been missing for approximately 12 hours at this point, possibly longer. Wednesday, January 25th, the discovery. 8 a.m. The Kesses wake up in Jennifer's condo after barely sleeping. There's still no word from Jennifer. Her phone is still going straight to voicemail. It's been 24 hours since she was last confirmed to be okay. Kesse calls the Orlando Police Department again, this time demanding that a detective be assigned to the case immediately. 24 hours have passed. His daughter is officially a missing person. They need to start a real investigation. A detective is finally assigned to the case, Detective Joel Wright of the Orlando Police Department's Missing Persons Unit. Wright agrees to meet the Kesses at Jennifer's condo that morning. 10 a.m. Detective Wright arrives at the Mosaic at Millenia and begins his preliminary investigation. He interviews the Kesses, takes detailed notes about Jennifer's habits, her relationships, her work, anything that might provide a lead. Wright is professional and thorough, but the Kesses can sense his initial theory: young woman, recently out of a long-distance relationship visit, perhaps she met someone, perhaps she's taking a break from her life. It's a theory that applies to many missing adults. Kesse is adamant, that's not Jennifer. She doesn't take breaks. She doesn't meet random men. She doesn't leave without telling anyone. Something has happened to her. 11 a.m. Detective Wright begins canvassing the Mosaic complex. He speaks to neighbors, building management, security personnel. He asks about the construction workers that the Kesses mentioned. Management provides a list of the contracting company and workers who'd been on site recently. 12 p.m. While Detective Wright is conducting interviews, the Kesses receive a phone call that changes everything. Jennifer's car has been found. A family friend who'd been helping with the search had driven through various parking lots in the area, looking for Jennifer's black Chevy Malibu. At Huntington on the Green, a condominium complex about a mile from Jennifer's home, they'd spotted it. The Kesses immediately call Detective Wright with the news. Wright tells them not to approach the vehicle, to wait for police to process it as potential evidence. 1 p.m. Detective Wright and a forensic team arrive at Huntington on the Green. The Kesses are there as well, though they're kept away from the immediate scene. Jennifer's black 2004 Chevy Malibu is parked in spot number 346, a visitor parking space. The car is locked. There's no visible damage to the exterior. It looks completely normal, as if Jennifer had simply parked it there herself. But Jennifer wouldn't have parked here. She had no connection to this complex. She didn't know anyone who lived here. There's no reason she would have been at Huntington on the Green. 1:30 p.m. A flatbed tow truck arrives to transport Jennifer's car to the police forensics bay. Before the car is moved, photographs are taken from every angle. The license plate is confirmed. The position of the seats is documented. Everything is recorded. One detail immediately stands out to investigators: the driver's seat is pushed significantly farther back than Jennifer would have had it. Jennifer was 5'3". The seat position suggests someone taller, perhaps 5'8" to 5'10", had been driving the car. 2 p.m. The car is towed to the forensics facility. The Kesses follow, desperate to know what evidence might be inside the vehicle. 3 p.m. Forensic technicians begin processing Jennifer's car. They dust for fingerprints, looking for any indication of who'd been inside the vehicle besides Jennifer. What they find is disturbing: the car has been wiped clean. Not just clean, but methodically scrubbed. The steering wheel, the door handles, the gear shift, the dashboard, every surface that someone would naturally touch while driving has no fingerprints. None. Not even Jennifer's. This isn't normal. When someone drives their own car regularly, their fingerprints are everywhere. On the steering wheel, the door handles, the rearview mirror, the radio controls. But Jennifer's car has been wiped so thoroughly that even her own prints are gone. 4 p.m. Further examination reveals chemical residue consistent with cleaning products. Someone had used cleaning solution to wipe down the interior of the car. This wasn't just a casual wipe down. This was deliberate evidence destruction. The forensic team collects samples for DNA analysis, but they're not optimistic. If someone went to the trouble of cleaning the car this thoroughly, they likely eliminated DNA evidence as well. 5 p.m. Detective Wright pulls the Kesses aside to explain what they've found. The car has been cleaned professionally. Whoever drove it to Huntington on the Green didn't want to leave evidence. This is a clear indication of foul play. But there's potentially good news: Huntington on the Green has security cameras. If the cameras captured whoever parked the car, they might have their first real lead. 6 p.m. Detective Wright contacts Huntington on the Green management and requests all security camera footage from January 24, particularly around noon when the car is believed to have been parked there. The complex's security system is explained. It's a still image system that captures photographs every 3 seconds, not continuous video. The cameras cover the parking areas and some of the walkways. There are approximately 6 cameras throughout the complex. Management agrees to provide all footage immediately. This could be the break in the case they desperately need. 8 p.m. Detective Wright reviews the security camera footage from Huntington on the Green. What he sees both excites and frustrates him. At approximately 12 p.m., noon, on January 24, one day earlier, Jennifer's black Chevy Malibu is clearly visible entering the parking lot. The photos show the car being parked in spot 346. A person exits the vehicle, locks it, and begins walking away from the complex. The camera captures this person in 3 to 4 distinct photographs as they walk across the parking lot and exit onto Americana Boulevard. But in every single photograph, at the exact moment the camera captures the image, a concrete support pillar in the parking structure blocks the person's face. Wright studies the images carefully. The person appears to be between 5'3" and 5'5" inches tall, based on measurements against known objects in the frame. They're wearing what appears to be light-colored pants or shorts and a light-colored shirt. The clothing is fairly generic, nothing distinctive. The person's gait appears relaxed, unhurried. They're not running. They're not looking around nervously. They're walking calmly, almost casually, away from the car they've just abandoned. The person's build is difficult to determine from the images. They appear to be slim to medium build, but the loose clothing makes it hard to be certain. And that face. That crucial, identifying face is blocked in every single frame. Wright brings in other detectives to review the footage. They examine it from every angle, enhance the images, try to find any frame where the face might be partially visible. Nothing. The timing is too perfect. The pillars block the face completely in every single shot. 10 p.m. The realization sets in among the investigative team, either this person had the most impossibly lucky timing in history, or they knew exactly where the cameras were and walked at a precise pace to ensure their face would be blocked. If it was the latter, it meant this person had either scoped out the complex beforehand or was intimately familiar with its security system. This wasn't a random crime of opportunity. This was planned, calculated, executed with precision. Thursday, January 26, the investigation intensifies. Morning, the Orlando Police Department officially designates Jennifer Kesse's disappearance as a suspicious missing person case, potentially an abduction. A full investigative team is assembled. Detective Wright is joined by several other detectives. They divide responsibilities. One team will focus on Jennifer's personal life, friends, boyfriend, family, looking for any interpersonal conflicts that might explain the disappearance. Another team will focus on the physical evidence, the car, the security footage, forensics. A third team will investigate the construction workers at the Mosaic complex. 10 a.m. Police released Jennifer's photograph to local media. The story runs on Orlando news stations. 24-year-old woman missing, car found abandoned. Tips begin coming in immediately, though most are sightings that will prove to be mistaken identity. 12 p.m. Detectives interview Rob Allen in Fort Lauderdale. The interview is extensive, lasting several hours. Rob provides his complete timeline of the weekend with Jennifer, the phone calls they exchanged, his whereabouts on January 24. Rob's alibi is solid. He was at work in Fort Lauderdale on January 24, with multiple witnesses and timestamped work records confirming his presence. He's 3 hours away from Orlando when Jennifer disappeared. He couldn't have been physically involved. Moreover, Rob is clearly devastated. Detectives who've conducted thousands of interviews can generally tell when someone is genuinely distraught versus performing grief. Rob Allen is genuinely, completely shattered by Jennifer's disappearance. He's eliminated as a suspect, though he'll remain a person of interest simply because statistically, romantic partners are often involved in disappearances. But there's no evidence pointing to Rob, and strong evidence pointing away from him. 3 p.m. Detectives begin the process of interviewing construction workers who'd been working at the Mosaic at Millennia Complex. The contracting company provides a list of approximately 20 to 25 workers who'd been on site in January 2006. This is where the investigation encounters its first major obstacle. Many of the workers were temporary, day laborers, paid in cash. Some provided names that may or may not be real. Some don't have permanent addresses. Several have already moved on to other job sites or left the area entirely. Of the workers who can be located and interviewed, several admit they noticed Jennifer. She was an attractive young woman, hard not to notice. But they all deny any inappropriate behavior or any knowledge of what happened to her. One worker stands out to investigators. He'd been working on a unit very close to Jennifer's. He'd had reason to be in the parking area where Jennifer parked her car. And when interviewed, he seems nervous, evasive, changing small details of his story. This worker is asked to provide a detailed account of his whereabouts on January 24th. His alibi is shaky. He claims he was working on site, but there's no one who can definitively confirm he was there all day. The worker agrees to provide DNA and fingerprints for elimination purposes. Investigators note his height and build. He's approximately 5'9", which could match the person in the security footage if the height estimates are off by a few inches. This worker becomes person of interest number 1, though publicly he's never named. Evening, the Kesse family holds their first press conference, appealing for information about Jennifer. Drew Kesse speaks directly to the cameras, his voice breaking with emotion. Jennifer is a responsible, loving young woman. She would never willingly leave without contacting us. Someone knows what happened to her. Someone saw something. Please, if you have any information, no matter how small it seems, contact the police. We just want our daughter back. The press conference is covered by every major news outlet in Central Florida. Jennifer's face is everywhere. Thousands of people are now aware of her disappearance. Tips flood the Orlando Police Department. The volume is overwhelming. Every tip must be followed up, every potential sighting investigated. Most lead nowhere, but investigators can't afford to miss a legitimate lead. The first week, January 27th to 30th. Friday, January 27th, investigators conduct a massive search of the area between the Mosaic at Millenia and Huntington on the Green. If Jennifer's body was disposed of somewhere in that corridor, they need to find it. Search teams include police officers, K-9 units, and volunteer searchers. They comb through wooded areas, drainage ditches, vacant lots, anywhere a body might be hidden. Nothing is found. Saturday, January 28th, the Kesse family organizes a volunteer search party. Hundreds of Orlando residents show up to help. The community has rallied around the Kesse family, moved by their obvious anguish in Jennifer's smiling photographs. Volunteers are organized into teams and given specific areas to search. They're equipped with whistles and instructions. If anyone finds anything suspicious, don't touch it, blow your whistle, mark the location, and call for police. Again, nothing is found. Sunday, January 29th, investigators receive the first round of DNA analysis from Jennifer's car. The results are disappointing but expected. No foreign DNA is found. The cleaning job was thorough. However, there are trace fibers found in the trunk of the car. These fibers don't match anything from Jennifer's condo or her known clothing. They appear to be from a carpet or rug of some kind. The fibers are sent for further analysis to try to determine their origin. Monday, January 30th, 1 week has passed since Jennifer disappeared. Statistically, the chances of finding a missing person alive decreased dramatically after the first 72 hours. After 1 week, the odds become grimmer still. But the Kesse family refuses to give up hope. Drew and Joyce have essentially moved to Orlando, staying in Jennifer's condo, coordinating search efforts, meeting with investigators daily, doing media interviews, anything to keep Jennifer's case in the public eye. Detective Wright holds a briefing with the investigative team. They review everything they know. Jennifer disappeared sometime between 9 p.m. on January 23rd and 8 a.m. on January 24th. Her car was driven to Huntington on the Green and abandoned around noon on January 24th. The person who drove the car successfully avoided being identified on security cameras. The car was thoroughly cleaned of evidence. There's no sign of Jennifer, no body, no ransom demand, no communication of any kind. Jennifer's cell phone last pinged a tower near her condo late on the evening of January 23rd and was then either turned off or destroyed. Theories at this point. Theory A, abduction from the parking lot. Jennifer left her condo normally at 7:30 a.m. on January 24th, walked to her car in the parking lot, and was abducted there. The abductor drove her car with Jennifer inside to another location, then returned the car to Huntington on the Green to throw off investigators. Theory B, abduction from the condo. Someone entered or forced entry into Jennifer's condo on the night of January 23rd or early morning of January 24th and abducted her from there. The person then drove Jennifer's car to avoid detection and later abandoned it. Theory C, abduction en route to work. Jennifer left her condo normally and was driving to work when she was forced off the road, carjacked, or otherwise abducted. The abductor drove her car to Huntington on the Green. Each theory has problems. Theory A requires the abduction to happen in a parking lot with potential witnesses and in daylight. Risky, but possible. Theory B requires explaining how someone entered Jennifer's locked condo without forced entry. Did Jennifer open the door to someone she knew? Was there a key copy? Did someone pick the lock? Theory C requires explaining how someone could force Jennifer off the road or into another vehicle during morning rush hour traffic on busy Orlando roads without witnesses. The investigative team focuses on Theory A as most likely. The parking lot at the Mosaic was often deserted early in the morning. The construction workers had been working nearby and would have had knowledge of the complex's layout, security cameras, or lack thereof, and Jennifer's routine. The construction workers, prime suspects. In the weeks following Jennifer's disappearance, the investigation focused heavily on the construction workers who'd been present at the Mosaic at Millennia Complex in January 2006. There were approximately 20 to 25 workers employed by the contracting company doing renovations at the complex. But tracking these men down proved extraordinarily difficult. Many were undocumented workers, paid in cash, providing names that may have been false. Some had already moved to other job sites in different cities or even different states. Several couldn't be located at all. Of the workers who could be found and interviewed, investigators identified several who raised red flags. Worker number 1, this man had been working on a unit directly adjacent to Jennifer's building. He'd have had clear views of Jennifer's parking area and would have seen her coming and going regularly. When interviewed, he was nervous, evasive about his whereabouts on January 24. He claimed he'd been working that day but couldn't provide specific details about what he'd done or who he'd worked with. His physical description matched the person in the security footage, approximately 5'8" to 5'9", slim build. His clothing style also matched. He typically wore light-colored work clothes similar to what the person in the footage was wearing. He agreed to provide DNA and fingerprints. Both were collected and analyzed. His DNA did not match anything found in Jennifer's car, though the car had been so thoroughly cleaned that this wasn't surprising. His fingerprints also didn't match any prints lifted from the vehicle. Without physical evidence linking him to the crime, and without witnesses placing him in Jennifer's vicinity on January 24, investigators couldn't build a case against him. He remained a person of interest but couldn't be charged. Worker number 2, another laborer who'd been at the complex, had a criminal history that concerned investigators. He'd been arrested years earlier for assault on a female in another state. The charges had been dropped, but the pattern was concerning. This worker had left Florida shortly after Jennifer's disappearance, moving to North Carolina for another construction job. Detectives traveled to North Carolina to interview him. The interview was confrontational. The worker became angry and defensive, accusing police of harassment. He admitted he'd noticed Jennifer at the complex but denied any inappropriate behavior. He claimed he left Florida for legitimate work reasons, not because he was fleeing the investigation. His alibi for January 24 was weak. He said he'd been at a different job site that day, not at the Mosaic, but no one could confirm his presence there. Cell phone records, he had a prepaid phone with limited records, couldn't definitively place him anywhere specific. Again, without physical evidence or witnesses, investigators couldn't make an arrest. The worker was told not to leave North Carolina without notifying police. He complied, though begrudgingly. Worker number 3, this individual caught investigators' attention for a different reason. He'd been interviewed early in the investigation and claimed he barely remembered seeing Jennifer. But when re-interviewed a week later, he suddenly remembered much more detail about her: what she typically wore, what time she usually left for work, what kind of car she drove. This change in his story was suspicious. Either he'd been lying initially about not noticing her, or he'd been paying much closer attention to Jennifer than was normal. Investigators pressed him on this inconsistency. The worker claimed he'd been nervous during the first interview and hadn't wanted to seem like he'd been watching Jennifer. But yes, he'd noticed her. Most of the workers had. She was attractive and dressed professionally, stood out among the more casually dressed residents. Background checks revealed this worker had been fired from a previous job for allegedly making inappropriate comments to female employees. Nothing criminal, but a pattern of behavior that concerned investigators. He too was asked for DNA and fingerprints. Both were provided. Neither matched evidence from the scene. The fundamental problem. The construction worker theory was compelling for several reasons. 1. They had daily access to the complex and knowledge of its layout. 2. They had opportunity to observe Jennifer's routine. 3. Several had expressed interest in Jennifer, according to her own statements to family. 4. Many had criminal histories or concerning backgrounds. 5. The timing of the abduction, early morning when the complex was quiet, suggested someone familiar with the area. But without physical evidence, without witnesses, without one of them confessing or making a mistake that exposed their involvement, investigators couldn't move forward with charges. The Orlando Police Department publicly stated that the construction workers were persons of interest and that the investigation was ongoing. But privately, frustration was mounting. They had suspects but couldn't prove anything. The cell phone mystery. Jennifer's cell phone became a critical focus of the investigation. The phone's activity pattern told an important story. January 23, 10:40 p.m. last pinged to a cell tower near the Mosaic at Millennia. This indicated Jennifer's phone was on, had battery power, and was in the vicinity of her condo. January 24, 12 a.m. and after, no pings. No activity. The phone either died, was turned off, or was destroyed. Cell phone experts brought in by the investigation explained that a phone doesn't just go dark like this naturally. If the battery had died, there would typically be some continued communication with towers as the power drained. A phone goes immediately and completely dark when 1. It's turned off manually. 2. The battery is physically removed. 3. The phone is destroyed, smashed, submerged in water, etc. Given what investigators knew about the case, option 3 seemed most likely. Whoever took Jennifer would want to eliminate the tracking capability of her phone immediately. The simplest way to do that, destroy the phone. Searches of the area near Jennifer's condo focused on trying to find the phone or pieces of it. Dumpsters were examined. Drainage areas were searched. Wooded areas were combed. The phone was never found. One investigator theorized that the phone might have been submerged in one of Orlando's many lakes or ponds. A phone at the bottom of a lake would effectively disappear, unable to be tracked or recovered without an extensive underwater search of numerous bodies of water. The 10:40 p.m. ping, what does it mean? The timing of the last cell ping has always been significant. At 10:40 p.m. on January 23, Jennifer's phone was on and near her condo. This supports the theory that Jennifer was still at home at 10:40 p.m., likely already in bed or preparing for bed as she told Rob she planned to do. If someone abducted Jennifer from her condo, it likely happened after 10:40 p.m. If she was abducted the next morning from the parking lot, then the 10:40 p.m. ping simply confirms she was home that evening as expected. But there's another possibility that's darker. What if the 10:40 p.m. ping was the last time Jennifer's phone was near her condo because Jennifer herself left the condo around that time, either voluntarily or by force? This theory suggests Jennifer didn't spend the night in her condo at all. Something happened late Monday evening that caused her to leave or be taken from her home. Her car remaining in the parking lot overnight was a decoy, moved the next day to throw off the timeline. Most investigators discount this theory because there's no evidence Jennifer left her condo Monday evening, and the state of her condo, coffee made, shower used, suggests she was there Tuesday morning. But it remains a possibility. The Huntington on the Green connection. Why was Jennifer's car abandoned at Huntington on the Green specifically? This question nagged at investigators. The complex was 1.2 miles from Jennifer's condo. Not far, but also not the nearest location someone could abandon a car. There were closer parking lots, shopping centers, churches, all places where a car could be left and blend in. So why Huntington on the Green? Theory 1, the abductor lived there. This was the initial working theory. Perhaps someone who lived at Huntington had abducted Jennifer and brought her car back to their own complex, either out of convenience or because they didn't realize there were security cameras that would capture them. Investigators obtained a list of all residents at Huntington on the Green in January 2006. There were hundreds of units, occupied by a mix of young professionals, families, and retirees. Each resident was run through criminal background checks. Any with histories of violence, sexual offenses, or other concerning charges were flagged for further investigation. Detectives conducted dozens of interviews with Huntington residents. Had anyone seen the black Chevy Malibu being parked? Had anyone noticed the person walking away from it? Had anyone seen or heard anything unusual on January 24 around noon? One resident reported seeing a person matching the general description, light-colored clothing, casual pace, walking through the complex around midday on January 24. But the description was too vague to be useful, and the resident couldn't identify the person as either male or female with certainty. No Huntington resident emerged as a strong suspect, though several remained persons of interest due to criminal histories or inability to account for their whereabouts on January 24. Theory 2, the abductor worked there. Similar to the mosaic at Millennia, Huntington on the Green had maintenance staff, contractors, landscapers, and other workers who regularly accessed the property. Investigators obtained lists of all service personnel who'd been at Huntington in January 2006. Background checks were run. Interviews were conducted. One maintenance worker had a concerning history. He'd been accused, but not charged, with stalking a former girlfriend. He'd also been working at Huntington on January 24 and couldn't provide a detailed account of his movements that day. This individual was interviewed multiple times. He denied any involvement in Jennifer's disappearance. He claimed he'd been doing routine maintenance work throughout the complex that day and simply hadn't noticed the Malibu being parked or the person walking through. His height and build were consistent with the person in the security footage. But without physical evidence or witnesses placing him near Jennifer's car, investigators couldn't charge him. Theory 3, random selection. This theory suggested the abductor had no connection to Huntington on the Green at all. They simply chose it as a convenient place to abandon Jennifer's car because it was a large complex where a random vehicle wouldn't immediately stand out. Perhaps the abductor had driven through the area scouting for a good place to leave the car and decided Huntington fit their needs. Or perhaps they were familiar with the area generally and knew Huntington had visitor parking where a car could sit for a day or two before anyone questioned its presence. This theory was less satisfying because it meant the location didn't provide investigative leads. If the choice was random, it didn't point toward any specific suspect. The security footage analysis. The security camera footage from Huntington on the Green became the single most analyzed piece of evidence in the entire investigation. Every frame was examined, enhanced, studied by experts from multiple agencies. The FBI's Image Analysis Unit was brought in to enhance the images and attempt to extract any identifying information about the person captured in the footage. What they determined. Height, based on measurements against known reference points in the parking structure, door frames, car heights, parking barriers, the person appears to be between 5 feet 3 inches and 5 feet 5 inches tall. However, there's a margin of error of 2 to 3 inches given the angle of the cameras and potential distortion. This height range could describe both a short male or a female of average height. Build, the person appears to be slim to medium build, approximately 120 to 150 pounds. The loose-fitting clothing makes precise determination difficult. Clothing, light-colored shirt, white or light gray, light-colored pants or shorts, possibly khaki or tan, dark shoes or boots. The clothing is casual, not distinctive. Thousands of people in Orlando would own similar items. Gait, the person walks with a normal, relaxed gait. No obvious limp or unusual movement pattern. The pace is steady, unhurried. This suggests confidence, someone not worried about being seen or caught. Gender, this became one of the most debated aspects of the analysis. The person's build and height could be consistent with either male or female. The clothing is gender neutral. Without seeing facial features or other identifying characteristics, determining gender is impossible from the footage alone. Some investigators believed the person was male, likely one of the construction workers from the mosaic. Others thought the person could be female, possibly an accomplice if Jennifer's abductor was male. The pillar problem. The most frustrating aspect of the footage is how perfectly the pillars blocked the person's face in every frame. Experts calculated the probability of this occurring by chance. The cameras took photos every 3 seconds. The person would need to be walking at a very specific pace, starting from a very specific position, to have their face blocked by pillars in every single frame captured. The probability of this happening randomly was calculated to be less than 1 in 100,000. This strongly suggested the person either A. had incredible luck, B. knew where the cameras were and deliberately timed their walk to avoid facial capture. Option B implied premeditation and familiarity with the security system. It suggested the person had either scoped out Huntington on the Green beforehand or had some prior knowledge of the complex and its security setup. The enhanced images. Using advanced enhancement techniques, analysts were able to extract some additional details. The person appears to have short to medium-length hair, but the color is indeterminate in the black and white footage. There might be something in the person's right hand, possibly keys or a small object, but this is uncertain. The person's shoes appear to be work boots or athletic shoes with light-colored soles. None of these details provided a breakthrough in identifying the person. Public release. In early February 2006, the Orlando Police Department made the decision to release the security camera images to the public. The images were shown on local and national news, distributed online, and included in missing person flyers. The public response was massive. Thousands of tips came in from people who thought they recognized the person in the footage. Every tip was investigated. Some tips seemed promising. A woman called to say the person looked like her ex-boyfriend who worked in construction. Detectives tracked down the ex-boyfriend, interviewed him, confirmed his alibi for January 24. He was eliminated. A man called to say the person's gait and build reminded him of a co-worker who'd been acting strangely. Detectives investigated. The co-worker was eliminated. Dozens, then hundreds of potential matches were investigated. Each led to a dead end. The person in the footage remained unidentified. False leads and frustrations. In the months following Jennifer's disappearance, the investigation was plagued by false leads, mistaken sightings, and dead ends that consumed investigative resources but yielded no results. The Texas sighting. In March 2006, a truck driver called police to report he'd seen a woman matching Jennifer's description at a truck stop in Texas. The woman had seemed distressed, like she wanted to communicate something but couldn't. Detectives flew to Texas to investigate. They interviewed the truck driver, reviewed security footage from the truck stop, and canvassed the area. The woman in the security footage looked somewhat like Jennifer, but closer examination revealed it wasn't her. The similarities were superficial. Another dead end. The psychic. Multiple psychics contacted the investigation claiming to have visions or information about Jennifer's whereabouts. Most were obvious frauds or delusional. But one psychic provided details that seemed eerily specific. She claimed Jennifer's body was in a wooded area near water, buried shallow, within 10 miles of her condo. She described specific features of the location: a fallen tree, a concrete marker of some kind, proximity to a road. Desperate for any lead, investigators searched areas matching this description. Dozens of wooded locations near lakes, ponds, and retention areas were examined. Nothing was found. The psychic's information was either wrong or too vague to be useful. The ex-boyfriend theory. Despite Rob Allen being cleared early in the investigation, tips kept coming in suggesting Jennifer had secret boyfriends, jealous exes, or hidden romantic complications. Every single lead was investigated. Every man Jennifer had ever dated was tracked down and interviewed. Each was eliminated as a suspect. Jennifer's romantic life was, by all accounts, stable and uncomplicated. The trafficking theory. Several tips suggested Jennifer might have been abducted for human trafficking purposes. Orlando, like many major cities, has issues with trafficking networks. A young, attractive woman like Jennifer could theoretically be a target. The FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force was consulted. They reviewed the case details and concluded that while trafficking couldn't be entirely ruled out, the circumstances of Jennifer's abduction didn't fit typical trafficking patterns. Trafficking victims are usually taken from more vulnerable populations: runaways, drug addicts, undocumented immigrants. Jennifer was educated, employed, with strong family connections. She'd be more likely to be recognized and more difficult to control. Moreover, trafficking victims are rarely taken from their homes or cars in low-crime suburban areas. The risk is too high. While the trafficking theory remained on the table, it wasn't considered the most likely explanation. The first year, diminishing returns. As 2006 progressed, the investigation into Jennifer's disappearance gradually lost momentum. Not because investigators gave up, but because they'd exhausted the obvious leads. Every construction worker who could be located had been interviewed. Many had been re-interviewed multiple times. DNA and fingerprints had been collected from those willing to provide them. None had produced a match to evidence at the scene. Every resident and worker at Huntington on the Green had been checked. No strong suspects emerged. Every tip and sighting had been investigated. All proved to be false alarms or mistaken identity. The security footage had been analyzed by the best experts available. The person remained unidentified. Jennifer's car had been processed so thoroughly that there was nothing left to examine. It had yielded no useful evidence. Searches of wooded areas, water bodies, and potential dump sites within a 20-mile radius of Orlando had found nothing. By January 2007, 1 year after Jennifer's disappearance, the case remained exactly where it had been 1 month after: no body, no suspect, no clear motive, no explanation for what happened. The Orlando Police Department maintained that the investigation was active and ongoing. Detective Wright continued to work the case, though he was also responsible for dozens of other cases demanding his attention. The Kesse family, however, never wavered. Drew and Joyce had essentially devoted their lives to finding Jennifer. They'd taken leaves from their jobs. They'd spent their savings on private investigators, search efforts, and publicity campaigns. They'd created a website dedicated to Jennifer's case. They'd appeared on every national television show that would have them: Dateline, 48 Hours, America's Most Wanted, Nancy Grace. They'd plastered Jennifer's face on billboards across Florida. They'd distributed thousands of flyers. They'd offered rewards for information. But despite all their efforts, despite all the media attention, despite all the investigative work, Jennifer remained missing. And someone who knew exactly what happened to her remained free. Over the past 19 years, numerous theories have emerged about what happened to Jennifer Kesse on January 24, 2006. Some are based on evidence and credible analysis. Others are speculation. Let's examine each major theory in detail, evaluating the evidence that supports or contradicts them. Theory 1: Abduction by construction worker. The case 4. This remains the theory most strongly supported by evidence and favored by many investigators. One opportunity: construction workers had daily access to the mosaic at Millennia Complex. They knew the layout, the security, or lack thereof, and Jennifer's routine. They'd observed her coming and going for weeks. To Jennifer's own concerns, Jennifer had told her family and Rob that some of the workers made her uncomfortable. They'd catcalled her, watched her, made her feel uneasy. This wasn't paranoia, Jennifer was describing predatory behavior. 3 timeline fit: the workers would have been present at the complex early in the morning when Jennifer typically left for work. Someone familiar with her routine would know the optimal time to intercept her. For physical match, several workers matched the general description of the person in the security footage: height between 5 feet 3 inches and 5 feet 9 inches, slim to medium build, wearing work clothes similar to what was captured on camera. 5. Knowledge of evidence disposal: construction workers would have access to cleaning supplies, would know how to clean a car thoroughly, and might have the practical knowledge to avoid leaving forensic evidence. 6. Transient nature: many of the workers were temporary laborers who left the area shortly after Jennifer's disappearance, making investigation difficult. This wasn't necessarily because they were fleeing justice, but the timing was suspicious. 7. Criminal backgrounds: several workers had prior arrests for violence, sexual offenses, or other concerning behavior. While this doesn't prove guilt, it established a pattern of criminal thinking. The specific suspect. One construction worker in particular became the focus of intense investigative scrutiny. Let's call him Person of Interest A, since he was never publicly named or charged. Person of Interest A had been working on renovations in a building adjacent to Jennifer's unit. His work area gave him direct sight lines to Jennifer's parking space and her comings and goings. When first interviewed, he claimed he barely noticed Jennifer, didn't pay attention to residents, just did his work and left each day. But co-workers told a different story. They said Poirier frequently commented on Jennifer, talked about how attractive she was, speculated about her personal life. One co-worker claimed Poirier once said something like, "A girl like that needs a real man," though this was disputed. Poirier's alibi for January 24 was weak. He claimed he was working at the mosaic that morning, but no one could specifically recall seeing him. He might have been there, or he might have taken the morning off. No time cards or documentation could confirm his presence. His physical characteristics matched the security footage person: approximately 5 feet 8 inches, slim build, typically wore light-colored work clothes. When asked to provide DNA and fingerprints, Poirier initially agreed, then changed his mind and requested a lawyer. This is his legal right, but it raised investigators' suspicions. An innocent person typically cooperates fully to eliminate themselves as a suspect. Eventually, through legal channels, investigators obtained DNA samples from Poirier. The DNA did not match any evidence from Jennifer's car or condo. But as investigators knew, the absence of DNA evidence doesn't prove innocence. The car had been so thoroughly cleaned that the lack of DNA was expected. Without physical evidence, without witnesses, without a confession, Poirier couldn't be charged. He remained a person of interest, watched periodically by investigators, but free. Years later, Poirier left Florida entirely, moving to another state. Investigators in that state were notified of his person of interest status, but there was nothing more that could be done. The case against. Despite the compelling circumstantial evidence, the construction worker theory has significant weaknesses. 1. No physical evidence. Despite extensive investigation of multiple workers, not one piece of physical evidence links any of them to Jennifer's disappearance. No DNA, no fingerprints, no witnesses, nothing. 2. The security footage problem. If a construction worker abducted Jennifer and drove her car to Huntington on the Green, how did they know about the security cameras and how to avoid them? Most temporary laborers wouldn't have sophisticated knowledge of security systems or the planning capability to execute such a careful evidence disposal. 3. Transportation logistics. If a worker took Jennifer's car to Huntington on the Green, how did they get back to the Mosaic or to their own vehicle? Did they have an accomplice? Walk? Take a bus? No witnesses reported seeing anyone matching the description walking or waiting for transportation near Huntington. For motive questions, while sexual assault is a clear potential motive, the execution of this crime seems highly sophisticated for what would be an impulsive or opportunistic attack by a laborer. 5. The cleanup. The thoroughness of the car's cleaning suggests either forensic knowledge or extreme paranoia about evidence. Most criminals don't clean crime scenes this well, which raises questions about whether a construction worker would have the knowledge and discipline to do so. Theory 2. Abduction by stalker/stranger. The case 4. This theory suggests Jennifer was targeted by someone who'd been stalking her, observing her, planning the abduction over time. Supporting evidence. 1. The meticulous planning. Everything about this crime suggests careful premeditation. The timing, the cleanup, the evidence disposal, the use of security camera blind spots. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. This was planned. 2. The security footage precision. The person in that footage knew exactly how to avoid facial identification. This suggests either multiple reconnaissance trips to Huntington on the Green or professional knowledge of security systems. 3. No personal motive apparent. Investigators found no evidence of conflicts in Jennifer's personal life. No angry ex-boyfriends, no workplace disputes, no financial problems, no one with an obvious grudge. This suggests the motive might have been stranger predation. For similar cases, Orlando and Central Florida have had other abductions of young women, some involving sophisticated planning and execution. Serial predators do exist and do target victims carefully. 5. The gym theory. Jennifer was a regular at a local gym. A stalker could have observed her there, followed her home, learned her routine, all without Jennifer being aware she was being watched. 6. Online presence. In 2006, social media was less prevalent, but Jennifer had an AOL profile and had posted in some online forums. Could someone have found her online, determined where she lived, and planned an attack? Investigators explored this possibility but found no evidence of concerning online contacts. The serial predator angle. One specific suspect who emerged in this category was a man who'd been convicted of abducting and assaulting women in Central Florida in the late 1990s. He'd been released from prison in 2004, just 2 years before Jennifer's disappearance. This individual had a pattern. He'd surveil victims, learn their routines, wait for the optimal moment to strike, and abduct them from parking lots or their homes. His physical description was consistent with the security footage: 5 feet 7 inches, slim build. Investigators interviewed this man extensively. He denied any involvement in Jennifer's disappearance. He claimed he'd been living with his mother in another part of Orlando on January 24 and hadn't been near Jennifer's area. His mother confirmed his alibi, though as a family member, her testimony was considered potentially biased. Investigators requested DNA. The suspect initially refused, then agreed after prosecutors obtained a court order. His DNA did not match any evidence from the scene. His vehicle from 2006 was located and examined. No evidence of Jennifer was found. Without evidence linking him to the crime, he couldn't be charged. But he remains a person of interest, one of several known predators in the Orlando area who were investigated. The case against 1. Why Jennifer? If this was stranger predation, why Jennifer specifically? She lived in a gated complex with security. She was cautious and aware. There were easier targets if someone wanted to abduct a random woman. 2. The car disposal location. Huntington on the Green wasn't a random choice. It was a specific complex relatively close to Jennifer's home. Why there? A stranger predator would more likely have disposed of the car far from the abduction site to avoid creating a geographic pattern. 3. No similar cases. Despite investigators looking for similar abductions with the same MO, car cleaning, security camera avoidance, etc., no matching cases were found. If this was a serial predator, where are the other victims? For the timing, why abduct Jennifer on this particular morning? A stalker would presumably have had multiple opportunities over weeks or months. What made January 24th special? Theory 3. Someone Jennifer knew. The case 4. This theory suggests Jennifer opened her door to someone she knew, or was approached by someone she trusted, and that person betrayed that trust. Supporting evidence. 1. No forced entry. Jennifer's condo showed no signs of forced entry. The locks were intact. The windows were undisturbed. This suggests either Jennifer opened her door to someone, or the person had a key. To the timeline, if Jennifer was taken from her condo, rather than the parking lot, it would require her to open the door. Jennifer was cautious. She wouldn't open her door to a stranger, especially not early in the morning before work. 3. The key question: who had keys to Jennifer's condo besides Jennifer herself? Her parents had a spare key. Rob Allen did not. He'd stay at Jennifer's condo when visiting, but Jennifer always let him in. Building management had master keys. Could someone have made a copy of Jennifer's key without her knowledge? It's possible but difficult. Jennifer kept her keys with her consistently. For familiarity with Huntington, if the abductor knew Jennifer personally, they might have known about Huntington on the Green through Jennifer mentioning it, or through their own familiarity with the Orlando area. 5. The calm demeanor: the person in the security footage walks calmly, not rushing, not looking around nervously. This suggests someone who doesn't feel they're at risk of being recognized or connected to the crime. Someone who knew Jennifer might feel confident they'd never be suspected. Potential suspects in this category: Rob Allen. Rob was thoroughly investigated and cleared. His alibi was ironclad. He was at work in Fort Lauderdale, 3 hours away, when Jennifer disappeared. Phone records, work records, and witness statements confirmed his presence. Moreover, Rob was clearly devastated by Jennifer's disappearance. Investigators who've conducted thousands of interviews can generally distinguish real grief from performance. Rob's was real. Ex-boyfriends: Jennifer had had previous relationships before Rob. Investigators tracked down every ex-boyfriend they could identify. Each was interviewed. Each had alibis. Each was eliminated. Co-workers: Jennifer worked at Central Florida Investments with dozens of people. Could a co-worker have become obsessed with her? Investigators interviewed everyone at her office. No one stood out as suspicious. No one had made inappropriate advances. Jennifer's workplace relationships were professional and friendly. Friends/acquaintances: Jennifer had a wide circle of friends from college, work, and her social life. Investigators interviewed dozens of people in her social circle. No one emerged as a suspect. All expressed shock and grief at her disappearance. Building management/maintenance: the Mosaic at Millennia had maintenance staff and management who had master keys to units. These individuals were all investigated. Background checks were conducted. No red flags emerged. The case against: 1. No motive: if someone Jennifer knew abducted her, what was the motive? There's no evidence of romantic obsession, no rejected advances, no financial disputes, no interpersonal conflicts. Without motive, this theory lacks foundation. 2. Risk level: someone Jennifer knew would be taking an enormous risk. They'd be immediately identified and investigated. They'd need an airtight alibi. The sophistication of this crime doesn't match the risk profile of someone from Jennifer's personal life. 3. The investigation found nothing. Despite extensive investigation of everyone in Jennifer's life, no one suspicious emerged. If it was someone she knew, they'd have to be extraordinarily good at hiding their involvement. Theory 4. Wrong place, wrong time. The case 4. This theory suggests Jennifer was simply unlucky. She happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and crossed paths with someone who saw an opportunity and took it. Supporting evidence: 1. Random violence exists. Some crimes have no complex motive or elaborate planning. Sometimes a predator sees a victim, sees an opportunity, and acts impulsively. 2. The parking lot scenario: if Jennifer was grabbed in her condo parking lot early in the morning, the abductor might have been cruising the area looking for a victim, saw Jennifer alone, and struck. 3. The car disposal: perhaps the abductor drove to Huntington on the Green simply because it was a nearby complex where they could abandon the car. The security camera evasion might have been lucky timing rather than careful planning. For lack of personal connection, the absence of any clear suspect from Jennifer's personal or professional life supports the idea that this was a stranger, a random predator. The case against: 1. Too many coincidences: for this to be random chance, too many things had to align perfectly. The timing, the car cleaning, the security camera evasion. Random crimes are usually messier, more chaotic, less perfectly executed. 2. The choice of victim: if someone was cruising for random victims, why choose Jennifer? She lived in a gated complex. She was alert and cautious. There were easier targets. 3. The disposal method: random predators typically either keep the victim's vehicle, to use or sell, or abandon it very quickly and far away. The specific choice of Huntington on the Green, relatively close to the abduction site, doesn't fit random crime patterns. Theory 5, Human Trafficking. The Case 4. This theory gained traction in media coverage, particularly on shows that sensationalize human trafficking. The supposed evidence. 1. Jennifer's appearance. Young, attractive, educated women are supposedly high-value trafficking victims. 2. Orlando's location. Florida is a hub for trafficking due to its ports and proximity to international borders. 3. The lack of a body. If Jennifer was trafficked, she might still be alive somewhere, which would explain why no body has been found. For the professional execution, trafficking networks have resources and experience in abduction and avoiding law enforcement. The case against. The human trafficking theory is, according to most experts and investigators, highly unlikely for multiple reasons. 1. Victim profile doesn't fit. Trafficking networks typically target vulnerable populations, runaways, drug addicts, undocumented immigrants, people without strong family connections. Jennifer was the opposite, educated, employed, with a tight-knit family who'd immediately report her missing and fight to find her. She'd be high risk and difficult to control. 2. Abduction method doesn't fit. Trafficking victims are rarely violently abducted from their homes or cars in suburban areas. The risk of witnesses and immediate police involvement is too high. Traffickers typically use manipulation, false promises of jobs, or target victims who are already marginalized and won't be quickly reported missing. 3. The FBI disagrees. The FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force reviewed Jennifer's case and concluded it doesn't fit trafficking patterns. While they couldn't entirely rule it out, they considered it one of the least likely explanations. For timeline doesn't work, trafficking victims are typically moved out of the area very quickly to break their connections and disorient them. Jennifer's car was still in Orlando area 12 hours after her disappearance. This doesn't fit trafficking MO. 5. No intelligence supports it. Despite extensive investigation, no information from trafficking investigations, informants, or busts has ever connected to Jennifer's case. 19 years later, no one in any trafficking network has ever mentioned her or provided information about her. The trafficking theory persists largely because it's featured on television shows and offers a narrative where Jennifer might still be alive. But evidence doesn't support it. Theory 6, Voluntary Disappearance. The Case 4. Some people have suggested Jennifer might have left voluntarily, perhaps to escape some unknown pressure or problem in her life. The supposed evidence. No body has been found. The clean car could have been Jennifer covering her tracks. Maybe she had a secret life no one knew about. The case against. This theory is dismissed by everyone who actually knew Jennifer and by investigators familiar with the case. 1. Jennifer's character. Everything about Jennifer's personality argues against voluntary disappearance. She was responsible, considerate, deeply connected to her family. She would never cause them this kind of pain. 2. Nothing to run from. Jennifer loved her life. She was happy with Rob, successful at work, financially stable, excited about her future. She had everything to live for and nothing to run from. 3. No preparation. People who disappear voluntarily typically take money, important documents, clothing, items of sentimental value. Jennifer left everything: her purse, wallet, ID, credit cards, clothing, all her belongings. For no activity. In 19 years, there's been no activity on Jennifer's bank accounts, credit cards, or social security number. She'd need to eat, have shelter, medical care. She'd have to exist somewhere. There's no evidence she's alive anywhere. 5. The car cleaning. If Jennifer left voluntarily, why clean her car so thoroughly it looked like a crime scene cleanup? It makes no sense. 6. Her family's conviction. Drew and Joyce Kesse know their daughter. They're not in denial. They understand Jennifer didn't leave voluntarily. Someone took her. The voluntary disappearance theory is occasionally raised by people who don't understand the case details or who have a cynical view of human nature. But it's not taken seriously by anyone close to the investigation. Theory 7, Accidental Death and Cover-Up. The Case 4. This theory suggests Jennifer died accidentally, car accident, medical emergency, etc., and someone panicked and covered it up rather than reporting it. Perhaps Jennifer had a medical emergency while driving to work and crashed. Someone she knew accidentally hurt her and panicked. Some kind of accident occurred that someone feared they'd be blamed for. The case against. 1. No evidence of accident. No accidents were reported on Jennifer's route to work on January 24. No one found a crashed vehicle or injured person. 2. The car cleaning. An accidental death wouldn't require the kind of thorough evidence cleaning found in Jennifer's car. Panic would typically result in hasty disposal, not meticulous cleaning. 3. No body. If someone panicked after an accidental death, where's Jennifer's body? 19 years of searching have found nothing. For the timing, why would an accidental death occur at exactly the time Jennifer would be leaving for work? The timing suggests intentional interception. The most likely scenario. After examining all theories, most investigators and analysts conclude the most likely scenario is Jennifer was abducted by someone familiar with her routine, likely from the parking lot of her complex, on the morning of January 24 between 7:30 to 8 a.m. The abductor either worked at or was familiar with the Mosaic at Millennia Complex. They drove Jennifer's car with Jennifer inside to another location, killed her, immediately or after a period of captivity, disposed of her body in a location that hasn't been found, then drove her car to Huntington on the Green around noon and abandoned it after carefully cleaning it of evidence. The most likely suspect, one of the construction workers from the Mosaic, though which specific individual remains unknown. The most likely motive, sexual assault, possibly escalating to murder when Jennifer fought back or when the abductor feared being identified. But without physical evidence, without a body, without a confession, this remains theory rather than proven fact. And somewhere, someone knows exactly what happened. Someone who's been carrying that secret for 19 years. The Kesse family's fight. If there's one thing that defines the Jennifer Kesse case above all else, it's the absolute, unwavering determination of her family to find answers. Drew and Joyce Kesse have devoted the last 19 years of their lives to finding Jennifer. They've spent their savings. They've sacrificed their careers. They've endured unimaginable grief. But they've never stopped fighting. In the early years after Jennifer's disappearance, the Kesses worked closely with the Orlando Police Department. They attended every briefing, provided every possible resource, cooperated fully with investigators. But as time passed, frustration grew. The Kesses felt the investigation wasn't being prioritized. Detective Wright was handling dozens of other cases. The trail was growing cold. New leads weren't being aggressively pursued. In 2008, the Kesses made a controversial decision. They hired a private investigator, a former law enforcement officer with experience in missing persons cases. The PI would work the case full-time, funded by the Kesse family, following leads that might not be priorities for the police department. The Orlando Police Department was not happy about this. They viewed it as implicit criticism of their work. Relations between the Kesses and OPD became strained. But the Kesses didn't care about politics or hurt feelings. They cared about finding their daughter. The private investigator re-interviewed witnesses, tracked down construction workers who'd left the area, and pursued new theories. Some of this work produced new information that was forwarded to OPD. But no breakthrough came. The legal battle for case files. In 2009, the Kesses made another decision that would further strain their relationship with OPD. They filed a public records request for copies of the entire investigation file on Jennifer's case. Under Florida law, public records including police reports are generally accessible to citizens. The Kesses argued they had a right to see what evidence existed, what leads had been investigated, what was known about their daughter's disappearance. The Orlando Police Department fought the request. They argued that releasing the full case file would compromise the ongoing investigation. Details might leak that would allow a suspect to know what evidence police had. Witness information might be exposed, putting people at risk. The legal battle lasted years. The Kesses fought in court, arguing that after years of no progress, they had a right to see the evidence and potentially find investigators or analysts who might see something OPD had missed. Finally, in 2018, 12 years after Jennifer's disappearance, a judge ruled in the Kesses' favor. The Orlando Police Department was ordered to release the case files, though with some redactions to protect witness identities and sensitive investigative techniques. When the Kesses finally received the files, they were voluminous, thousands of pages of reports, interview transcripts, photographs, evidence logs, and investigative notes. Reading through it all was agonizing. Seeing the photos of Jennifer's car, reading the forensic reports, reviewing the witness statements, every detail was a reminder of what they'd lost and what remained unknown. But the files also revealed something troubling. There were leads that hadn't been fully pursued, witnesses who'd only been interviewed once and superficially, construction workers who'd left the area and weren't tracked down. The Kesses believed that if the investigation had been more aggressive in the crucial first months, Jennifer might have been found. The podcast and new publicity. In 2018, the same year the case files were released, a true crime podcast called Unconcluded did a deep dive series on Jennifer's case. The podcast, hosted by Drew Kesse himself in partnership with a podcast producer, brought new attention to the case. The podcast reached millions of listeners. It presented the case in detail, examined the theories, featured interviews with investigators, and appealed directly to anyone with information to come forward. The response was significant. New tips came in, though most were either old information or speculation. But a few tips seemed credible and worth investigating. One listener contacted the podcast to say they'd worked at Huntington-on-the-Green in 2006 and remembered something strange. On January 24, they'd seen a person walking through the complex who seemed out of place, looking around as if unfamiliar with the area but also as if they were looking for something. This witness had never been interviewed by police because they hadn't realized at the time that what they'd seen might be significant. By the time they heard about Jennifer's case and connected it to what they'd seen, years had passed and they'd assumed police didn't need information that old. The witness's description of the person matched the general details from the security footage: light clothing, slim build, walking at a casual pace. But the witness couldn't provide additional identifying details. It was 19 years ago, and their memory was understandably vague. Still, it confirmed something investigators had suspected. The person who abandoned Jennifer's car had walked through Huntington-on-the-Green and exited onto Americana Boulevard. From there, they either had a car waiting, took public transportation, or walked to another location. Advances in forensic technology. As the years passed, forensic technology advanced dramatically. DNA analysis became more sensitive. Genetic genealogy emerged as a tool for identifying unknown persons. Facial recognition software improved. Digital forensics allowed recovery of data from older devices. The Kesses repeatedly asked the Orlando Police Department to re-examine evidence using new technologies. Had the car been re-examined with modern forensic techniques? Had DNA samples been run through newer databases? Had anyone tried using genetic genealogy to identify the person in the security footage if they'd left any DNA behind? The answers were frustrating. Some evidence had been re-examined, but the thorough cleaning of Jennifer's car meant there was little physical evidence to reanalyze. The security footage had been enhanced multiple times by different experts, but the quality limitations of the original cameras meant no amount of enhancement could reveal a face that was blocked by pillars. In 2020, the Kesses arranged for independent forensic experts to examine copies of evidence, photos, and reports. These experts confirmed what OPD had concluded: the evidence, while clearly indicating foul play, didn't point definitively to any specific suspect. One forensic analyst who reviewed the case offered an opinion that many found chilling: whoever did this had either done it before or had thought about it extensively. This wasn't a first crime. The level of care in evidence disposal, the timing, the execution, this is someone who knew what they were doing. Which means they were either experienced or had planned it meticulously. And if they were experienced, Jennifer might not have been their only victim. This raised a disturbing question: were there other cases, other missing women, that might be connected to Jennifer's disappearance? Similar cases in Central Florida. Investigators looked at other unsolved disappearances of women in Central Florida in the years around 2006. Several cases had some similarities. Tracy Ocasio, 2009, a 27-year-old woman who disappeared from a nightclub in Orlando. Her body was found weeks later. The circumstances were different, but the victim profile, young, attractive, professional woman, and location, Orlando area, were similar. Michelle Parker, 2011, a 33-year-old woman who disappeared in Orlando after dropping her children off with her ex-fiancé. Her car was found abandoned. She's never been found. The abandoned car element was similar to Jennifer's case, but Michelle had a clear suspect, the ex-fiancé, and a very different set of circumstances. Neither case was definitively linked to Jennifer's, but they illustrated that Central Florida had other unsolved disappearances of women around the same era. A more thorough review of cases going back to the 1990s identified several other missing persons and unsolved murders of women in the Orlando area. Could any be connected to Jennifer's case by a common perpetrator? The FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, was consulted. This database tracks violent crimes across the country looking for patterns that might indicate a serial offender. No definitive matches were found. While there were superficial similarities in some cases, each had unique circumstances that suggested different perpetrators. If Jennifer's abductor was a serial offender, they were either very good at varying their MO, or their other crimes hadn't been recognized and reported. The reward in public appeals. Over the years, the reward for information leading to Jennifer's whereabouts has grown. Initially offered at $5,000, it's now at $15,000, funded by the Kesse family and contributions from supporters. The Kesses have appeared on every major true crime television show: Dateline NBC, 48 Hours, Nancy Grace, Dr. Phil, Disappeared, Investigation Discovery specials. Each appearance brings new attention, new tips, new hope. Jennifer's face is on billboards across Florida. Her missing person poster has been distributed to every law enforcement agency in the United States. Her case is featured on missing persons websites and databases. The Kesses maintain an active website, findjenniferkesse.com, with case details, photos, and a tip line. They're active on social media, regularly posting updates and appeals for information. Every year on January 24th, the anniversary of Jennifer's disappearance, the Kesses hold a press conference or memorial event. They renew their public appeals. They remind everyone that Jennifer's case is still unsolved, still open, still demanding justice. And every year, Drew Kesse makes the same statement: we will never stop looking for Jennifer. We will never give up. Someone knows what happened to our daughter. And we're asking that person, if you have any conscience at all, please come forward. Help us bring Jennifer home. The toll on the family. The past 19 years have taken an immeasurable toll on the Kesse family. Drew Kesse, who was a successful businessman, essentially put his career on hold to focus on finding Jennifer. He spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on private investigators, legal fees, publicity campaigns, and search efforts. Joyce Kesse has struggled with her health, the stress and grief manifesting in physical ailments. She's been hospitalized several times for stress-related conditions. Logan Kesse, Jennifer's younger brother, has lived his entire adult life in the shadow of his sister's disappearance. He was in college when Jennifer vanished. Now he's in his 30s, and his sister has been missing for more than half his life. The family has been in therapy, both individual and family counseling, trying to process their grief while also maintaining hope that Jennifer might still be found. In interviews, Drew Kesse has been honest about how the case has consumed their lives. We can't move on. People say you need closure, you need to accept and move on. But how? Jennifer is our daughter. Until we know what happened to her, until we can bring her home, there is no moving on. There's only forward. Fighting, searching, demanding answers. Joyce has spoken about the unique torture of not knowing. If Jennifer had died in a car accident, as horrible as that would be, we'd know. We could grieve, we could bury her, we could have a grave to visit. But this? Not knowing if she's alive or dead, if she suffered, if she's somewhere waiting for us to find her? It's unbearable. But we bear it because we have to. She's our daughter. Current status of the investigation. As of 2025, 19 years after Jennifer's disappearance, the case officially remains open and unsolved. The Orlando Police Department maintains that it's an active investigation, though Detective Wright retired years ago. New detectives have been assigned to the case periodically, each reviewing the files, each hoping to see something previous investigators missed. But realistically, without new evidence, without a witness coming forward, without a confession, the case is unlikely to be solved through traditional investigation. The best hope now is either someone's conscience, one of the construction workers, or someone who knows who was involved, finally deciding to tell the truth. 2. Deathbed confession. If the perpetrator is dying, they might confess to ease their conscience or provide closure to the family. 3. Connected case. The perpetrator commits another crime, is caught, and confesses to Jennifer's case as well. 4. Accidental discovery. Jennifer's remains are discovered accidentally by someone hiking, building, or doing land development in an area that wasn't previously searched. 5. Technological breakthrough. Some new forensic technology allows reanalysis of evidence in a way that identifies the perpetrator. The Kesse family believes option 1 is most likely. They believe someone knows what happened, possibly multiple people. Construction workers talk to each other. If one of them was involved, others might suspect or know. The Kesses have made public appeals directly to these potential witnesses. If you worked at the Mosaic in January 2006, if you know something, even if you weren't directly involved, please come forward. You can do so anonymously. You won't be prosecuted for staying silent this long. We just want to know what happened to Jennifer. Please help us bring our daughter home. So far, no one has come forward with Jennifer Joyce Kesse has been missing for 19 years, 1 month, and 7 days as of today. She was 24 years old when she disappeared. She would be 43 now, if she's still alive. Statistically, the chances of Jennifer being alive are virtually zero. The FBI estimates that if a missing person isn't found within 72 hours, the likelihood of finding them alive drops dramatically. After 19 years, hope becomes almost impossible to justify rationally. But the human heart doesn't operate on statistics. And the Kesse family holds on to hope because the alternative, accepting that Jennifer is gone forever without ever knowing what happened to her, is simply unbearable. This case represents everything frustrating about missing person investigations. There's evidence of a crime. There's security footage of the perpetrator. There are logical suspects. But without that one crucial piece, physical evidence, a witness, a confession, justice remains elusive. The person who took Jennifer Kesse made almost no mistakes. They cleaned the car thoroughly. They knew how to avoid security cameras. They disposed of Jennifer's body in a location that hasn't been discovered despite extensive searches. They left behind almost no evidence. Almost no mistakes. But not zero mistakes. They left Jennifer's car where it could be found. Why not drive it to a lake and submerge it? Why not torch it in a remote area? Why abandon it at a residential complex where it would be quickly discovered? They walked through the Huntington on the Green complex during daylight hours. Why not abandon the car at night when there'd be fewer potential witnesses? They chose Huntington specifically. Why? What connection did they have to that complex? These questions suggest that while the crime was carefully planned, it wasn't perfect. There are anomalies, choices that don't make complete logical sense. And those anomalies might eventually lead to answers. What Jennifer's case changed? Jennifer's disappearance had impacts beyond her family and friends. Her case led to several changes in how missing person cases are handled in Florida. 1. The Jennifer Kesse Public Records Law. The legal battle the Kesses fought to obtain case files led to clarifications in Florida law about families' rights to access information about their missing loved ones' investigations. 2. Improve security in residential complexes. Many condo and apartment complexes upgraded their security systems, adding more cameras, better lighting, and controlled access points after Jennifer's case highlighted vulnerabilities. 3. Greater attention to construction worker screening ***. Many residential complexes now require more thorough background checks on contract workers and require them to wear ID badges while on property. For awareness of parking lot dangers, Jennifer's case became a teaching moment about personal safety, particularly for young women living alone. The dangers of parking lots, even in supposedly safe complexes, became part of safety education. But perhaps the most significant impact is how Jennifer's case illustrates the limitations of our justice system. We have evidence. We have suspects. We have resources. But without that one definitive piece of proof, justice cannot be served. The person who took Jennifer has lived freely for 19 years. They've gone to work, maybe had relationships, maybe even raised a family. They've lived a life while Jennifer's family has been frozen in grief and searching. That injustice is the hardest part for many people to accept. To the person who knows. If you're watching this and you know something about Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, understand this: the truth has a way of coming out eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but eventually. 19 years is a long time to carry a secret like this. It weighs on you. It changes you. Every time you see Jennifer's face on a billboard or in a news story, you feel it. That weight. You might have convinced yourself you had good reasons for staying silent. Maybe you were afraid. Maybe you were protecting someone. Maybe you were involved in some way and feared prosecution. But understand what your silence has cost. It's cost the Kesse family 19 years of agony. It's cost Jennifer justice. It's cost your own peace of mind, if you have any conscience at all. You can end this. You can give the Kesse family the one thing they've been begging for: answers. You don't have to give your name. Anonymous tips have solved cases before. Just tell what you know. The Orlando Police Department tip line is always open: 1-800-423-TIPS. You can also contact the FBI or the Kesse family directly through their website. Someone out there knows what happened to Jennifer Kesse on January 24, 2006. Maybe you were there. Maybe you heard someone talking about it. Maybe you put pieces together over the years and realized someone you knew was involved. Whatever you know, however you know it, please come forward. Help bring Jennifer home. Help give her family peace. Help bring justice for a young woman whose only crime was being in the wrong place when the wrong person saw an opportunity. 19 years is long enough. The truth needs to come out. For Jennifer. This investigation has covered thousands of details, examined multiple theories, reviewed years of evidence and searching. But in all of that, it's important to remember that at the center of this case is a real person. Jennifer Joyce Kesse was not just a missing person case number. She was not just a face on a poster or a security camera image to be analyzed. She was a daughter who called her parents almost every day. A sister who looked out for her younger brother. A girlfriend who was planning a future with the man she loved. A friend who remembered birthdays and organized celebrations. A professional who took pride in her work and was building a career. She had dreams. She wanted to advance in her career, maybe start her own business someday. She wanted to marry Rob, have children, build a family. She wanted to travel, to see the world beyond Orlando and Fort Lauderdale. She had favorites. Favorite foods, favorite movies, favorite songs. She had quirks and habits. She had inside jokes with her friends. She had a specific way she liked her coffee. She had a particular route she drove to work because she preferred it to the alternatives. She was real. She was alive. She was a complete, complex, three-dimensional human being with a full life ahead of her. And someone took all of that away from her in one morning. Jennifer Kesse deserves more than to be a cold case file. She deserves justice. She deserves to be found. She deserves to be brought home to her family. Her parents are getting older. Drew Kesse is now in his 70s. Joyce is in her late 60s. They've spent 19 years searching. They won't have many more years to search. Before it's too late, before the people who remember Jennifer start to fade away, before the evidence degrades beyond any usefulness, Jennifer deserves answers. If you're watching this, share it. Talk about Jennifer's case. Keep her name alive. Keep pressure on investigators. Keep the public aware that this case exists and demands resolution. Because the moment we forget about Jennifer Kesse, the moment we move on to the next case and the next story, that's when the person who took her wins. That's when justice truly dies. Jennifer's family will never forget her. They will search until their last breath. The least we can do is remember her story and demand that it doesn't end without answers. The search continues. As I record this in 2025, Drew and Joyce Kesse are still fighting. They're still searching. They're still advocating. They're still demanding answers. They've created a legacy of persistence that's inspired other families of missing persons. They've shown that you don't accept that cases go cold. You don't accept that your loved one becomes a statistic. You fight every single day until you get answers. The Jennifer Kesse case will be solved. Maybe today, maybe this year, maybe 5 years from now. But it will be solved because the Kesse family will not let it die. Because investigators, even 19 years later, are still working it. Because someone's conscience will eventually break. And when it's solved, when we finally know what happened to Jennifer on that January morning in 2006, when the person responsible is finally identified and held accountable, it will be because people didn't forget. Because the pressure never stopped. Because justice, even delayed, is always worth pursuing. Jennifer Joyce Kesse. Say her name. Remember her face. Share her story. She was 24 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. Someone took that from her. And that someone needs to answer for what they did. If this case affected you, if Jennifer's story moved you, please subscribe to this channel. We're dedicated to keeping these cases alive, to giving victims a voice, to demanding justice even when it seems impossible. Leave a like to help this video reach more people. Comment with where you're watching from and share any thoughts you have on the case. And most importantly, don't forget Jennifer Kesse. Don't let her become just another cold case statistic. Her family is still waiting for answers. She deserves justice. Thank you for watching. The search for truth continues. If you have any information about Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, please contact Orlando Police Department Cold Case Unit phone 1-800-423-TIPS-8477. FBI Tampa Division phone 813-253-1000. Jennifer Kesse website findjenniferkesse.com. Reward $15,000 for information leading to Jennifer's whereabouts.